Pennsylvania's budget and state manufacturing, next on Behind the Headlines.
This is Behind the Headlines, with behind-the-scenes analysis on issues affecting Pennsylvanians, sponsored by the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy. Now, here's your host.
Hi, welcome to a new edition of Behind the Headlines. I'm Charlie Greenawalt, Senior Fellow of the Susquehanna Valley Center for Public Policy, and I'm joined, as usual, by my co-host, Mara Donnelly.
Hello.
Mara, welcome.
Hello, Charlie.
Why, this is the presidential season, and the presidential campaign is ongoing.
It is. It's well underway.
I thought that maybe we could have a little bit of fun at the beginning of some of our shows and point out some of the bloopers or some of the perhaps inconsistencies or perhaps outright fibs being told by the two campaigns.
Okay. Do you have something?
Well, I was wondering if you watched David Letterman.
I haven't. I didn't this week.
Oh my goodness. David Letterman has pounded over and over and over again on poor Governor Romney because at one point Governor Romney transported his dog on a long vacation, and they didn't have any room left in the car, so they put the dog in a cage.
I did have heard
put
this
it on
story.
the top of the car, but they put, what David Letterman isn't saying, is they put a huge plastic windbreak in front of that cage.
Oh, good.
So the dog
good for them.
was
Smart
protected
thinking.
from the wind. But the point of the matter is, it's very interesting. In Barack Obama's autobiography, he talks about growing up in Indonesia and some of the things he ate there. One of the things that he ate was dog.
Oh my gosh.
So, I mean, poor...
Not the family dog, hopefully.
Governor Romney may expose his dog to a little bit of wind, but at least he doesn't eat them.
That's true.
I
so
don't know.
true.
Dave, welcome to the show.
on that fine note.
Of course, we have with us today David Patti, who's the president and CEO of the Pennsylvania Business Council. We're here to talk about the Pennsylvania budget and some other matters. Dave, do you have anything unusual that stands out from the race so far this cycle?
Well, nothing culinary. I'll tell you one that grabbed me last week was Father's Day coming up and everything. The Obama administration wanted to take advantage of that, and I fully understand that, respect that. That's okay. But I have to say I laughed because they, with great sincerity, came out with the announcement of a Father's Day barbershop buzz or something like that it was called. And the statement literally said, I shouldn't say literally, but the implication was, well, the stimulus program failed to create any jobs or link enough people to jobs. People are still unemployed. So we're now responding with our new initiative so that fathers, when they go to the barbershop, will be able to connect to good jobs. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, barbershops, really? In the 21st century, this was Plan B. Is the bar?
Oh my!
$800 billion in stimulus didn't work. Well, go to Plan B, the barbershops, and I'm thinking, wow.
Wow.
You've heard it here first.
The barbershop buzz.
I was thinking of Jimmy Carter putting on the sweater. It's game over. You know?
Yeah.
Or talking to his daughter about nuclear planning.
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, on this note,
and no offense meant to any barbers out there,
Yes,
please.
yeah.
But
none taken. None taken. Well, Dave.
Let's bring it closer to home.
Yeah, so let's talk about the state budget this year. We have a Republican governor. We have a General Assembly, both the Senate and the House, that are controlled by Republicans, but they have different ideas about the budget this year, didn't they?
Well, there's some different ideas. I mean, and the news media, not surprisingly, the headlines focus on the differences. But the governor had proposed a budget of $27.15 billion. What passed in the Senate and seems to be where the House is hovering right now as we prep for the final run is about $500 million more than that. So call it 27.
That's not a significant difference.
But when you think about it, that means they agreed on the first $27 billion.
Yeah.
It's the last $500
right.
million. And there's a couple of things that have happened since the governor made his original proposal in early February. We have found that the revenue picture got better than we thought it was. Now, it's not as good as where we had hoped it would be when we predicted all the revenues for last year. But the governor mid-year had started to tighten up on spending. Mm-hmm. So we are not as good as we had hoped we would be a year ago, but we're better than we thought we were going to be 4, 5, 6 months ago. And so that allows for some more spending and or tax cuts or some kind of combination thereof. And in fact, that's very much what they're all talking about. Is the use of that money. The governor has proposed, and I don't think inappropriately, hey, there's some things coming down the pipe. It may not hit us this year, but pension funding, other things, let's put the money aside not surprisingly, lawmakers, whether they be Republicans or Democrats, are saying, yeah, but I can make some people happy now in the short run if we spend it one way or the other, either through actual spending or through a tax cut. And so they're negotiating that. And then the governor is using leverage there, too, to get some things like some education reforms for charter schools, earned income, the education improvement tax credit, a couple other things he wants. So there's the normal give and take. Whether you're a Republican, Democrat really matters very little towards the end. It's all about the institutions and your constituents.
Well, we're close to the deadline. Do you think it'll be on time?
Sure. No, absolutely. I mean, if there's one thing that none of the players in this want to do, it's to have a repeat
Spend
of
the
the 8
summer.
years of the Rendell years of not making an on-time budget. Right, and spend the summer. The work expanded to fill the time. A few months ago they were saying, oh, maybe early June 13th, something like that. June 13th has come and gone. Yeah. Not surprisingly, because they had the luxury of more time available, they took more time to talk about things. And that also allowed time, frankly, on the calendar to do some other things. Like liquor, for instance.
Well, for example, there's been a flurry of activity, but then it sort of fizzled.
We have
What's
new
going
proposals out from,
New proposals.
It's on the rocks.
President Pro Tem.
It's on the rocks.
Yeah.
Is it on the rocks?
From President Pro Tem Joe Scarnati has some new proposals.
Give us the straight up on that.
Well, I'm not sure if I know what it is, and of course, as we prepare the show, there's a lot going on in the background that may even happen before the show airs. But Representative Turzai, who has long championed reform defined as divesting of the state liquor stores, closing down the state's monopoly, an 80-some-year monopoly. And remember, it's only us in Utah that are in the liquor business, where we actually buy the liquor, wholesale the liquor, retail the liquor, and then try and enforce it at the same time.
Right.
Booze is bad, but if you buy more, we'll do better in state revenue. So, I mean, we're trying to have it both ways. And there are a lot of people who think, look, there's no reason the private sector can't do this. It does it everywhere else in the world. So first of all, let's privatize. Now, not surprisingly, that creates all kinds of problems with the unions and the people who are already there. There are the anti-liquor people in Pennsylvania who think that there'd be more of an expansion. But there are a lot of really difficult, thorny technical issues too. Okay, what do you do about the lease on the real estate that's already leased for the stores?
Right.
What do you do about those displaced workers? What do we do about, one of the big things is beer distributors. A lot of people would like to be able to walk into a grocery store, a convenience store, and buy their beer there, buy a bottle of wine, maybe buy a bottle of spirits. Well, we have this whole beer distributor system. Are they going to be allowed to have access?
I did hear that they might get first dibs on expanding their stores to include liquor.
There are lots of different proposals.
That one was interesting.
But I mean, they're an important constituency,
absolutely.
and they're politically active, and they have engaged a very high-ranking former lawmaker as their lobbyist, and so they will be heard. And there are some rather, at least some versions of this legislation had some rather arcane kinds of ideas. Well, if you're a beer distributor and you have so many square feet, then you can sell this, but if you're less than that, you can't. And they're saying, well, gee, why do I want to put on extra, square foot? That's going to cost me money to build it. Or maybe where I physically am located, I don't have the room to.
Right.
There's no place to expand. I'd have to sell my store and go somewhere else. Why does the government care how big the building is, right? I mean, if they can figure out a way to put the product in there and sell it, so be it.
Yeah.
But that's not an unimportant issue to people selling shelf space like the grocery stores do to larger companies. Small breweries in Pennsylvania, not surprisingly, fear the big multinational breweries that they'll come in and they'll dominate.
Right.
Small retailers feel the big box warehouses will come in and dominate with licenses. So those are not unimportant issues. And in fact, some of that's business community on business community kinds of debate.
Go ahead. No, just probably what else is, what do you think we'll see? Other big issues with this budget?
Well, for example, what about transportation funding?
No.
Okay.
Business taxes, business issues.
Well, let's go back. I mean, even if we do something on liquor in the House, the Senate has, as you said, a different proposal. I mean, the good news is, though, even the Senate wants to modernize from where we are. They don't want to go as far as the Turzai bill, but Senator McElhaney's bill, supported by President Pro Tem Joe Scarnati, is certainly an improvement over the status quo. So it doesn't go as far as some people would like. Frankly, our organization would like to go farther and divest of the stores. But that will be for the fall. The transportation funding, the governor thought was too big for to be part of the budget discussion, wanted to hold off. He had actually proposed maybe a special session late in the year.
Is that going to happen?
I don't think so, because the legislative leaders had made promises after the 2005 pay raise that we will never again do anything after Election Day in the lame duck session, and they want to honor that commitment to the voters. You could say, well, special session is different than the regular session, so it's not really lame duck. But I think everybody says the optics would be a little too cute, and if it's going to mean raising a gas tax or doing something on revenue, maybe we wait. So January, February, I think, is now the thought process on that. Within the budget, though, there are some very good things on business taxes, and I think for everybody's taxes. Certainly, it holds the line on the personal income tax. We're not going up there or raising any other personal income taxes or the sales tax or anything like that. But it continues to phase out of the capital stock and franchise tax. Probably the most despised tax because it is a tax on the top line, on the assets. Whether or not you make any profits, you still have to pay that tax. We were supposed to start phasing that down in 2001, one full mil or 1/10 of what the total rate was every year for 10 years. Well, it's now year 14 because we delayed it a few times, did half a reduction. This is almost the last time. Let's just get rid of it this time, and then the next time it'll be gone. So that's huge. And then there are some other little things in there. We are talking about the ability to move to a single sales factor, which is a sort of technical issue within the calculation of the corporate net income tax, but it helps in-state companies. People who have assets and payroll in Pennsylvania are penalized when those are considerations in taxes. If we go only to sales, we'll just be helping. Everyone will be taxed the same, but somebody who has assets and people here won't be penalized for it.
Well, okay, so we get them out of town. Summertime hits. What are you going to be working on?
Well, there's a couple things we're looking at. I think the governor's teed up a lot of things in education reform, and we want to be helpful with that and continue that discussion. But one of the national movements that a lot of business organizations are involved in is a move to Common Core standards. The idea that
will you tell us what that means?
Yeah, that a curriculum for Pennsylvania students, as we're moving to a common curriculum across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. Well, kids in Alabama, California, Oklahoma, Alaska, pick a state. Pennsylvania all ought to be learning at a high level, and we certainly the population moves around across the state line, so let's make sure that they all share some basic common core kinds of things like good language skills, good math skills. And Pennsylvania has moved to join that national effort. A secondary element of that is a national effort then to have a common assessment. In other words, a common test to make sure that the students are performing. We have the PSSAs right now. We're moving to the Keystone exams. But again, that if there's a common curriculum across the country, then we also ought to have a common assessment tool.
This is something that the Ridge administration had made great progress on. The Casey administration started by trying to introduce something called outcomes-based education, but they didn't seem to explain it or implement it very well.
And Governor Rendell's
Ridge picked up on that.
Administration picked up from the Ridge administration with the Keystone exams and everything. It's been a work in progress in Pennsylvania.
But that's been state focused.
That's state focused. There are similar efforts going on in a lot of other states. And now this is, all right, how do we tie it all together?
How can we make it more confusing?
Right. Well, hopefully it becomes more simple. I mean,
can we get all 50 states, Dave?
48 have already signed on to the concept of the Common Core.
That's quite
so that's pretty amazing,
quite an accomplishment.
Who are the holdouts? Do you know?
I should know that.
That's
I don't
okay.
remember.
Sorry.
But the southern states, for instance, that used to be holdouts in some of these areas, are on board, and I think there's a recognition within the business community that if we are going to compete globally, and America certainly has that ability. We can be as strong as any other nation in terms of productivity and in terms of our manufacturing capacity. Our business savvy and marketing skills and everything are second to none, but we have to have the workforce.
Can these state governments get their educational establishments to come along, get the teachers unions to come along?
Well, that's part of the educational process we'll be involved in. I will give credit, though, to the Pittsburgh teachers who themselves voluntarily joined into a model effort with the Gates Foundation and with the state of Pennsylvania on a teacher evaluation, teacher assessment out there based on the performance of students with the idea that it will lead to merit pay. And in Pittsburgh, those teachers have said, no, this is the right way to go. Okay. And so I think, we're making progress.
All right. This is something exciting to keep an eye on.
It is.
All right. We want to have you back and talk about this in the next couple of months.
Sure. I'd love to do that.
Okay.
All right. Let's go to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. We'll be right back after this.
Behind the Headlines is brought to you as a public service by the Pennsylvania Business Council, envisioning a commonwealth in which residents enjoy a very high quality of life in sustainable communities. The Council works aggressively to define key long-term policy strategies and solutions that make the Commonwealth more competitive, creating and sustaining a better Pennsylvania. Additional underwriting provided by the Worrell Corporation Foundation, based in Carlisle, Pennsylvania, by the Edward H. and Jeannie Arnold Foundation, and by the Hospital and Health System Association of Pennsylvania, helping hospitals to provide healing, health, and hope to communities across the state. And by the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Business in Pennsylvania is our business. Behind the Headlines is also supported as a public service by Daily Underwriters of America, a better way for truck insurance. And by Penn Waste, your best local choice for your waste removal and recycling needs.
Welcome back to the second segment of Behind the Headlines. And on this segment, Maura and I are lucky enough to be joined by Dave Taylor, who's the Executive Director of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Dave, welcome back to the show.
Thanks very much. Great to be with you.
Hello,
Great
Dave.
to see you, Maura.
Well, it's we've been talking on the first segment of the show.
With the other Dave.
Yes,
With the other
with Dave Patti. About the state budget and about the state business climate, and if there's anyone that has their finger on the pulse of the business community, particularly the manufacturing community, it's you. We understand that there's some exciting new initiatives out there from the governor's office affecting manufacturing. We're wondering if you could talk about some of them today.
Well, yes. I was honored to be asked by Governor Corbett to serve as a member of his Manufacturing Advisory Commission, which began meeting in January of 2012. We just recently held our sixth and final official meeting at Kennametal in Latrobe. That Carlos Cardoza, the CEO of Kennametal, is the co-chairman of the commission, along with DCED Secretary Walker. And so the members of the commission are going to be working on the final version of the report in the coming weeks, so that the administration can issue that report in midsummer, early fall, before the legislature returns, and yes, with specific recommendations on how to improve Pennsylvania's competitiveness with manufacturing, how to make government work better, how to help manufacturers to access capital, to open markets. But we also spend an awful lot of time talking about the skills gap and about the need for a better educated workforce and more connectedness between the kind of job training and workforce development that we have now and the actual jobs that exist out in the economy.
Oh, it sounds like there's going to be a lot of high-level recommendations from the report.
Well, President Reagan said that oftentimes that there are answers that are simple, but they're not easy. And so, there's a lot of straightforward stuff, and again, it's a high-quality document, and I've been very impressed with the other members of the commission. It was an honor to serve with them, and certainly I thank Governor Corbett for assembling this group. It shows his commitment to manufacturing as the engine that drives our economy, and it also shows his commitment to a more prosperous Pennsylvania.
Oh, awesome.
The skills gap. What can we do about the skills gap?
Well,
and will you explain to our viewers exactly how the skills gap affects Pennsylvania manufacturing?
Well, the fact is that although Pennsylvania unemployment is still, I guess, not quite 7.5%, and that there are many Pennsylvanians who are looking for work, it's a paradox that there are thousands, probably tens of thousands, of Pennsylvania manufacturing jobs that go unfilled because the talent just isn't available. There are people looking for work, but they don't have the specific skills that manufacturers need to employ them and to put them to work in the factories. And so we need to have systematic reform, not just of the workforce development, job training system, but also with our public education system and with higher ed, with the community colleges, to help our young people to understand exactly what's going to be expected of them. in the workplace. We need, and again, some of this is has been said before, but it bears repeating because the real world impact is tremendous. That we need to have a new emphasis on mathematics, science, and engineering. That we need more of the soft skills, which is to say, to have people who show up to work on time, drug free, and are able to read, write, communicate, do basic math, and understand instruction.
And work well with others.
Well, that's also an important soft skill. And so, anyway, I don't want to get ahead of myself in terms of the recommendations, and also that it wouldn't do it justice to try to summarize it in such a brief manner. But yes, that the commission spent a lot of time working through these various issues, and is going to have some very appealing and very consequential recommendations in the report.
Well, and we talked to Dave Patti a little earlier about some of the business initiatives we might see that will go along with the budget, but there have already been some successes for the business community already, specifically on employment comp reform. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, the Corbett administration, the governor and Secretary of Labor and Industry Julia Harthway have managed to bring to pass a reform of Pennsylvania's the unemployment compensation law. And first of all, I want to say that this was not by any means the wish list from the business community, that there are still many reforms regarding eligibility and other changes, improvements, modernizations that still need to take place. But by midwifing this particular compromise, the administration successfully averted disaster for job growth and the cost of creating a job in Pennsylvania, because as it stands, Pennsylvania is in arrears to the federal government by almost $4 billion. That's money that we borrowed from Uncle Sam to pay for ongoing unemployment compensation benefits for folks out of work in PA. Now that money has to be paid back, but because we're so far in arrears that there is a credit that accrues to employers, a discount as it were, for being current on our payments, and because we're in arrears, that went away. And so that raises cost. And so along with some reforms on eligibility and how benefits are calculated, that there is a cost savings on the system going forward. Our system is badly broken. It's one of the most expensive in the nation. But along with tweaking the cost of the system going forward, that this legislation also refinances the debt, the money that we owe to Uncle Sam. So we're going to bond that debt. We're going to lock in low interest rates, and that if unemployment stays around 7.5%, we will be able to return the system to solvency within 7 to 10 years. Now, if the economy improves and unemployment is lower than that, Pennsylvania will return to solvency sooner.
Okay.
But if nothing had been done, we would simply have continued deeper into that penalty phase, high interest rates. It's sort of like when a consumer goes into arrears with your charge card and you haven't made the minimum payment.
Just snowballs.
The rates escalate,
Yeah.
and so employers were going to pay more one way or the other, but at least this way we're paying to return to solvency. We're avoiding disaster, and as such, the Secretary Harthway in particular deserves a lot of personal credit for brokering this compromise, with intervening with the individual stakeholders, and this was not a Republican-only plan. That there was some degree of buy-in by both the Democrats and organized labor. So this is a major accomplishment that
Wonderful.
UC hasn't been touched in a long time.
Another major accomplishment of the Corbett administration is on the horizon here that you could talk about and would do wonders for economic activity in western Pennsylvania, and that's the whole notion of a new plant opening there
Yes.
to provide energy to the Commonwealth.
Yes.
Could you talk
Yes.
about that a little bit, Dave?
The plant in particular that the Shell Corporation announced their initial decision to site a multi-billion-dollar petrochemical facility in Beaver County, Pennsylvania, as opposed to potential sites in West Virginia and Ohio. Now, the purpose of this plant is to take the rich natural gas, they call it wet gas, which comes with a heaping helping of byproducts. This plant would refine that natural gas, separate out the ethane in the natural gas and turn it into ethylene. Now, ethylene is a feedstock for every kind of consumer plastic known to man. It's also used in as a feedstock for industrial chemicals, paints and glazes, for some pharmaceuticals. So, in terms of the energy growth in Pennsylvania and the value that gets added to our economy, yes, that there are, jobs on the wellhead extracting the natural gas, that there are jobs in transmission and in, direct support of that industry. But even more value is potentially available if the manufacturing that makes use of these byproducts takes place in Pennsylvania. So if you would have low and stable energy prices from Pennsylvania natural gas and an essentially unlimited supply of ethylene and other byproducts from processing the natural gas, which is what would take place at the Shell plant, that the value added, the spin-off effect from that related manufacturing could be as great or greater than the impact of the Marcellus Shale gas industry itself. It would be, if this plant goes in, it'll be the only one north of Louisiana.
What are we talking about in terms of possible employment numbers?
Well, we're talking about, it's fun. The word that was used by one person in organized labor to describe the effects of this petrochemical plant in Beaver County was biblical.
That's pretty big.
Wow.
Big.
Yeah.
Now, why do you say if? Any
issues?
it is
30 seconds.
it is going to be many years until shovel touches dirt.
Okay.
And as it stands, Pennsylvania's a plan to bring the plant depends on the approval of a tax credit over the 25-year life, starting 5 years in the future. And that's a question of some dispute. The credit is an earned credit. It only goes to the company if the activity takes place. It's a common sense thing. It needs to happen if we're going to get this major investment.
Okay.
Awesome.
Dave, we want to thank you for bringing news to us of biblical proportions. We're thankful for that, and I hope the Commonwealth will be as well.
Great to be with you.
Thank you very much. We want to remind you that we're available on YouTube. You can see all of our previous shows on YouTube and on thevoiceofpa.net. We'll see you next week on Behind the Headlines.